Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Makbool with you at PTB World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at two important stories. The first is with reference to Pakistan's economic situation and the recent cabinet meeting chaired by the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, in which the aspects with regards to investment in Pakistan were discussed, particularly with a focus of the political and security situation in Balochistan that is impacting investor confidence, and in the way that different businesses and communities are taking a look at whether or not this is something sustainable in terms of investment and also in terms of the future direction of the economy. And this is particularly important, of course, in light of the second phase of CPAC and the focus and the emphasis on Balochistan as a province in that regard as well, and also, of course, in Pakistan as a whole. It's important, of course, to understand the way that the economy is progressing. It seems that both the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister are clear on those terms in terms of various indicators looking forward, and in the way that a positive trajectory is being seen when we take a look at a number of areas. However, of course, it remains to be seen whether or not the true potential of Pakistan can actually be utilized in light of what the current situation is, particularly in terms of terrorist activities in areas such as Balochistan and others as well, and what needs to be done to boost investor confidence. And this was, of course, decided in this meeting as well, that all stakeholders need to be brought on the same page, and they need to be consulted in order to plan ahead for how to boost investor confidence and build that trust, and then, of course, bring in more investment in the country, both domestically and across the border as well. So that's going to be our focus in the first segment of the show today. Our next one is going to take a look at what is going on in terms of Gaza and Lebanon, and of course we've seen the genocide continue in Gaza, we've seen attacks continue in Lebanon, and this is important particularly in terms of how despite whatever is going on, it seems that the world is pushing towards a ceasefire. However, there doesn't seem to be any concrete progress on the matter, and the attacks continue. We've also seen a very controversial bill being passed by the Israeli parliament that has banned the UN's refugee agency, which is, of course, very, very important in terms of what is going on and the way that people need help. And then, of course, the attacks in Lebanon continue. We're going to be taking a look at what that means, particularly in terms of negotiations moving forward, and what Israel claims is the end of Hezbollah leadership, although it seems that there is a new one that is, of course, emerged, and this continues. So the escalation in what has been going on in the Middle East is important, and whether or not any de-escalation efforts are sincere and are actually moving towards a tangible solution remains to be seen. But while we talk about it, the people of Gaza suffer. So we're going to be taking a look at that at the end of the show. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analysts FARRUKH and Raja FAISAL. We've also been joined online for our first segment by Mr. Saqib Rafiq, who's a former president at Rawalpindi Chamber of Commerce and Industries, and by Dr. Niaz Murtaza, who's a political analyst. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us and being a part of the discussion today. Dr. Niaz, I'll first take your opinion in terms of what has been going on when we talk about the situation in Pakistan, the economy in Pakistan, and it's very important in terms of the way ahead and what exactly will be the outlook of the country and the positive trajectory that, of course, the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister is moving forward. So we're going to be taking a look at the overall picture. But before I come to you, Farrukh, I want your take on this particular area as well. While, of course, we see a lot of the indicators actually pointing towards progress, and there seems to be a lot of positivity on that front. Yeah. I want your take on what that means then in terms of the actual situation, in terms of the difference then that we see in terms of investor confidence and businesses in Pakistan. So while the economy seems to be improving, as certain numbers seem to suggest that were quoted, such as the inflation growth rates and the budget deficit, but in terms of actualities and what businesses need in Pakistan, where is that difference, and whether or not the path that we're on seems to be a sustainable one?
Right, Sana, thank you very much for the question. But just to actually answer your question, I'm going to deploy one analogy. That is, a boy is admitted in the ICU and he just got revived. So you're asking why hasn't he gone to prom? So give him time, he'll make it to prom as well, but at this moment he is recovering, right? I remember General Pervez Musharraf quoting one of the Chinese premiers who actually said that investors are like a flock of birds. When they come, one bird comes at a time. If something bad happens, like you fire in the air or something of that sort, they all fly away together. Once again, when they come back one by one. So at this moment, what exactly is happening is that the economy that only 2 years ago was all but written off has come into itself, and things are improving. Of course, investment wise, you are seeing what Pakistan Stock Exchange is doing. It is breaking all the records, right, every single day. But apart from that, also there is going to be FDI. Pakistan only has to do a couple of things. First of all, of course, they have to improve the quality of governance, and that is why we have seen SIFC being introduced, so that all these tiers of government actually can work in harmony, and that's how you actually ensure that any new business that comes to town, they are ensured the kind of one window of protection that they require.
Do you think that has happened since the creation of the SIFC?
But that is actually the whole point of SIFC. So I think that at levels it is happening already, because remember, even when we talk about other investors, there is one investor that is already in town, and I'm talking about CPAC. Because of that, all the inconveniences that were caused by bureaucracy are being ironed out. So I think that at this moment things have actually improved, and they will continue to improve if we have the political will. And I think that we have seen some display of that political will over past months, when we managed to get an EFF from the IMF, and then of course 26th Amendment also. With all that said and done, I think in coming days, on one side you have to actually look at the governance which is being done. On the other side, Sana, then you have to actually innovate, and you have to define what is a portfolio to the world. What are the opportunities? Remember, if you want to sell something, if you are a salesperson, what do? You actually talk up your product, and you actually identify various aspects. For example, there is this series representing the golden age of marketing. That was Mad Men, right? In Mad Men, they showed that there is some kind of pushback against tobacco. So they ask, what exactly do you do with your tobacco? The company, the client. They say, we toast it. So they say, this one is safer because it is toasted, right? So all you have to do is essentially identify the areas, and then do enough homework that when an investor comes, you have all the preparation. You just offload that data to them and help them understand where you can actually invest and what exactly can you do.
Absolutely. Let me also welcome in the debate Dr. Niaz Murtaza and Mrs. Saqib Rafiq. And Dr. Niaz, I want your perspective first on the current situation, particularly when we talk about the way that the Finance Ministry and the government, of course, has been emphasizing on economic recovery. And while that is there, while, of course, we have the IMF, EFF now, and we're moving towards progress on that front and certain indicators, even with the numbers with regards to IMF's outlook. But I want your take, particularly when it comes to the governance issues, because while all of that is happening, it seems that there isn't that kind of synergy, or the fact that the talk with regards to synergy still exists, and it seems that we haven't really proceeded on that front. I want your take on why that is, and whether or not that's something that can actually be overcome, because we can have all the plans laid out for us, but particularly in terms of taking all stakeholders on board, taking all provinces on board, and then having that sort of ability to prepare that governance system is something that is evidently the need of the hour, and something that, of course, the IMF has also stressed about. But that is something that unfortunately we've just heard about in the past historically and haven't progressed yet. Where is the problem?
Well, I mean, if you look at the situation, economic progress has four components. Economic stability. Economic stability means that, inflation is low, your current account deficit, fiscal deficits are in control, your exchange rate is stable, you have enough foreign reserves, your interest rates are low. Until and unless you have that, you cannot have the next stage, which is economic growth. So then economic growth is about expanding your economy on the back of economic stability through increasing investment and productivity, right? And so these two things, everybody agrees, whether you talk about the left or the right. But then the left also adds things like equity and sustainability, right? So what have we had in Pakistan over the last few years? We had this huge crisis in 2022, the same year in which we also had a growth rate of about 6%. And why was that? Because that growth rate of 6% was not achieved by increasing investment and productivity. It was achieved by high fiscal deficits, high current account deficits, and loose monetary supply. When you have high fiscal deficits and loose monetary supply, what happens? Your inflation starts going down up. And then when you have high current account deficit, what happens? Your foreign reserves start to fall down. And when your foreign reserves fall, then there is panic in the market and the news like, we are left with 4 months, 3 months, 2 months of reserves. And when that situation comes, you have to go back to IMF. And then IMF tells you your fiscal deficit is too high, your monetary policy is too loose, and your current account deficit is so high. So you have to cut your fiscal deficit, you have to increase your interest rates, and you have to depreciate. And when that happens, your economy starts to contract. So we had that for the last 2 years. And the way to control that is what the IMF says, increase your interest rate, depreciate, cut fiscal deficit. Now we've done all that. So now what we have is the stage of economic stability. The rupee is stable, the foreign reserves are slowly increasing, inflation is going down. So now is the stage for you to go into the next phase, which is economic growth, but not again through increasing fiscal deficit, current account deficit, and money supply, but by increasing investment. And that is your topic today. So that is, the real thing. And you have to increase investment. But as soon as we start talking about investment, our mind jumps straight to, foreign investment. Foreign investment should be there, but then we also need to focus on local investment, especially for those industries which do not give you any foreign exchange earnings. If you get foreign investment even for those industries, then how are you going to pay for the profit repatriation? And then again, you will, run into your current account and, balance of payment problems. So the first thing is increase your domestic investment. And for that, we have to increase our domestic savings. They are so low, the lowest probably in South Asia. And then, of course, you have to have foreign investment too. But then again, in foreign investment, our mind straight goes straight into investment from, the big countries, USA, China, CPEC, or the Middle East countries. Okay, that is fine. But then we also need to, look at attracting private investment. That is the way Bangladesh and India have, really expanded their economies, not by getting money from China or USA or Middle East so much, but mainly the private investment. Of course, Saudi Arabia is also investing in India now, and but their main thing is, private investment. So this is what we need to do. We need to increase our local investment and then also private investment from abroad in industries that will give you foreign earnings, so that this perpetual problem that we have of current account deficits and then going into a crisis, that ends. So this is the situation now. This is what the government has to do. And the skills required for achieving economic stability are very different from those that we require to have economic growth. Economic stability, two people can sit in their offices, the governor of state bank and finance minister, they can increase interest rate, they can depreciate the rupee, and they can cut down on the fiscal deficit, get some loans, and you'll have economic stability. But the skills that are required to have sustainable growth, it requires creativity. It requires, bringing those sectors of the economy which are dynamic, giving them incentives, looking at the global economy and see where we can, climb the development ladder. So this is the challenge before the government.
Absolutely. Saqib Sahab, I want your perspective on this as well because, of course, you're part of the industry. You have headed the Rawalpindi Chamber of Commerce and you have insight into how the industry works and what they think and what they need, particularly when we talk about boosting investor confidence. So if we're bringing in more investment, particularly domestically and from local businesses, helping them thrive and flourish, you're a stakeholder in this conversation and very important one. I want your take on what would you want from the government? What do you need from the government to help you do business in the country?
And Saqib Sahab, help us also understand when you actually decide to invest in a new sector, what informs your decision? Is it government's data or input or marketing? Is it your own R&D or something else?
Thank you very much. There are two parts of the question. So let me first answer to how the investor can get into conflict. There was a very big problem the Pakistani environment was facing, and that was the consistency or like the stability of the policies. We see a new policy every few years, every few months with a change in the government, with a change.
Right, unfortunately, we've lost contact with Saqib Sahab, but we'll, of course, connect again and would love to hear his insight. I think he's back. Saqib Sahab, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. Yes, we lost you for a bit, but please go ahead.
Yeah. So right now, what we are seeing that we had a very worst time in the previous year. We have now crossed the river of the fire. There is a stability in the government. There is stability in the economic policies. The inflation has gone down. The interest rate is also going down in the coming on the 4th of November. There is a monetary policy review, and we are expecting a 200 base reduction or 150 base reduction. Things are moving in the right direction. The local investor or the current or the existing investors need the same kind of favors which SIFC is going to give to the new investors. So the stability or the confidence of the local, or I can say the existing investors, is very much necessary, which is building up right now. You can see the stock market is flourishing right now. It's going up. You can see many new delegations coming to Pakistan. Today's speech of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, and then the speech of the Saudi delegation when they were here, the body language is very positive. The people are watching it, people are monitoring it, the business community of the Pakistan are watching it. Now we see that we have a very stable currency exchange rate. The cost of doing business is slightly going down. We can see a good exchange, good interest rate in the coming months or coming, you can say by the next budget, we'll be having a very good figure of the interest rate coming down. So this is what was needed in the Pakistani market, which is actually happening after a gap of few years or gap of few months, what I can say. And secondly, coming to what I can see when I'm going to invest into some new sector or when I wanted to start some new business, there are multiple things going into it. First, I take inspiration for someone who is doing some successful thing over in some area or in some sector or in some market. And then secondly, the R&D. I have to make my own research. I have to see the government policies. I have to see the past trends. I have to see how much demand is coming into this sector. So this is basically a blend of what is going to happen in the coming times, and that is on my readings, on my research, on my you can say my connectivity and how I interact with the people over there, how I see what they are doing. Like right now, I'm going to start a new business in coming months. So I'm meeting the people who are into that business, and I'm just taking experiences out of them. And then I see what the government is going to do. Government is like more focused on the export-oriented businesses right now. Under the SIFC, we can see there are many sectors which are being promoted, which are being facilitated. With the government want us to work into that thing. So agriculture is the keyword right now.
Sorry to cut you, Saqib Sahab, but just
Yeah.
building on what Sana asked you, your answer, and then connecting my question also. Because you have actually said that you have your R&D and that actually supports your decisions. My question at this moment is, what is your assessment of private sector's capability to go ahead with R&D, and does the private sector need any kind of government's help in establishing the R&D departments in their own industries so that we can have the kind of diversification of investment?
Right, and Saqib Sahab, also add to that the sentiment of the private sector that they're feeling. You just spoke about how you are actually engaging in business, and it seems like it's you and the other parties who are involved in that business, and then you'll see what the government is doing and what not. And so I want your take on whether or not the sentiment in the industries is that they're on their own, or do they really feel the positivity in terms of the numbers and aspects that you've just suggested? Is the sentiment there that the situation is helping them, that the government has created, or the aspects of different institutions of the government, do they feel that they are playing the role of a facilitator?
Yes, Sana, definitely. The financial indicators or the figures, while the figures don't lie, they do help in increasing the investor confidence. Like after the IMF deal, you can see a positive change in the stock market. You can see a positive change. Like I know many people who are going into the industrialization phase now. I know many families who are looking for increasing their export products right now. But in the previous year, like in 2023, people were like stuck up on the same place, and they don't want to invest anything in the Pakistan at that moment. They say the market is uncertain. There is no stability. We are not sure what the next month will come up with what kind of dollar rate. The fuel prices were uncontrollable. You have seen a worst inflation in the month of July, August, September last year. It was more than 50% on the energy, on the fuel, on the food, everywhere. So things have stabilized down. So when the things are down, there are people in my circle, there are people from the different export industries who are going for longer trips to the outer world to get some orders. So people do get inspired. The business community do get happy when there is economic stability, when there is a political stability. And believe you me, under the umbrella of SAFC and with the integration of BUI, the privatization is also taking up some speed, and we are happy that there was a leakage from the government exchequer, and now it's going to be stopped. So this is something which is showing a positive will or a seriousness of the government, that there is a will to do things in the right way. Although these are some tough decisions which the government is taking, these tough decisions are making our confidence boost up, or like making us looking for some investment opportunity, because doing business in Pakistan is something we prefer rather than going to the other part of the world. We are the people, like I was representing our Chamber of Commerce. This was the third largest Chamber of Commerce. So people do want to spend their investment in Pakistan. People want to set up industries. But there was some issues, there were some difficulties which we were facing. Alhamdulillah, I have seen Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif working. I have seen Ishaq Dar working. The way the world is now connecting with Pakistan. The Prime Minister just had a meeting with Mohammed bin Salman, and that is something which is a very positive thing for the business community, or like the investors, or like the new entrants into the.
And we of course keep on hearing good news on that front, and we're obviously of course looking for even more positive steps in the future. Faisal, an aspect interestingly that Saqib Sahab referred to was skills development, and that's important particularly when we talk about building that local industry. And if we're looking at future investment and supporting future business in Pakistan, this is something, particularly when we talk about digital skills, is something that has seen a lot of emphasis in the world over and also in Pakistan. But I want your take in terms of the efforts done in those regards, and whether or not in the ways that we are actually engaging in those projects, are we fully equipped to, and are we supporting them in terms of economic empowerment then in the future? Is that linked with the skills development programs that you see?
Excellent question, Sana. And overall, I mean, I'll be very frank when I reply this question regarding, whether we are helping them people who are looking for the different ways to, of course, increase their part of their portion of economy of Pakistan. Well, there are certain hurdles for them. When I talk about IT, of course, we know that there are few challenges still need to be fixed in Pakistan. There are several people who are attached with their livelihood. They are earning from the IT sector, which has a lot to do with, of course, strong internet. They have to have strong internet. They have to have unhindered supply of their access to different different websites and whatever they are working. I'm talking about Amazon as well. There are certain the areas of IT that are still to be explored by Pakistan, and believe me, that can bring billions of dollars to Pakistan And we can say in this context that in a country like Pakistan, where still there are few corners of Pakistan that believe that a woman going out for work is taboo, is considered as taboo, there are so many females hailing from Pakistan who are attached with this IT sector, working from home and still earning in dollars, and that actually piles up in terms of Pakistan's investment, as I would call it, because it is eventually money that is actually coming from outside of Pakistan, coming to Pakistan, becoming part of Pakistan's economy, and that is important. So I believe these kind of hindrances, they need to be addressed. Yes, I can say that political stability is important. Yes, I say that security domain needs to be, of course, focus as well when it comes to a country like Pakistan. But at the same time, the the sort of balance when it comes to maintaining all of these challenges, it needs to be implemented in Pakistan, and the people who are, of course, in this sector, attached to this sector, they need facilitation. When it comes to R&D, of course, we keep on hearing about you, Sana, yourself. You are attached with, of course, one of the prominent universities of Pakistan, and I believe there is a very good nexus of how to promote the students who have done excellent in their fields, and how their research can be, of course, because their research is a dream, and that dream can only come true with the help of investor out there who's sitting out there helping these kind of students, these kind of future scientists to, of course, introduce something new in Pakistan, and that would eventually, of course, help Pakistan's economy. The countries, when we talk about the developed countries, there is a very strong sort of system that actually owns these kind of brains, owns these kind of researchers and these kind of scientists, and that's how they innovate. And when they innovate, and that innovation actually represents their country, represents them, and represents the economy of that country. To me, I think this is the time that focus should be put towards the youth, put towards the young scientists, the young innovators who are out there in the universities, of course, seeking opportunities, and them opportunities can only be created by by a system that is sort of innovation friendly system, and that needs to be, of course, implemented in Pakistan. Brains are there, but of course the opportunities are not being available to them, and that is how their brains, of course, they get wasted in that context. When it comes to, of course, security and political, I mean, I have always been in favor of Dr. Niaz when he talks about the political stability. Political stability is pivotal for any economy, and of course in case of Pakistan it is the important aspect of Pakistan's economy. We have seen that for the last 2 years, the kind of instability we had in terms of politics, that had a crucial role to play for where we stand right now. And yes, there were very strong, very harsh decisions which were made by the current government, and that was the only choice they were left with.
Right.
And that is how they have actually improved sort of strength in the economy, and that needs to be taken forward. But in that context, of course, we have to, I mean, we always say CPEC is pivotal, CPEC is very important, but how we are going to reap the fruits of CPEC, that's what matters. Of course, security is pivotal, political stability is pivotal, and at the same time, the SEZs, when SEZs come, how we are going to benefit from CPEC, that's what matters.
Absolutely, and these are important aspects that I of course will be exploring further. But Dr. Niaz, I want your take on particularly when we talk about the security and political situation, and the aspect of Balochistan was something that was highlighted in the cabinet meeting as well, and we've just recently, of course, unfortunately earlier this month, seen an attack on Chinese nationals, and so CPEC phase 2 is extremely important in terms of the safety of Chinese nationals in that regard as well. And I want your take then on how do we, while we talk about all of these measures, align that with needs of security in place as well, particularly in areas like Balochistan, because it seems that while we can take all of these measures, if we don't have the situation under control in terms of security aspects, that will be for nothing. And so, particularly when we're dealing with Balochistan and CPEC Phase 2, what aspects are important here, and whether or not any sort of possible combined security can be provided when it comes to CPEC project personnel in particular?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there are all, the complications with, the economic problems themselves. But then, economic stability and growth are badly affected by, your security situation, your political stability, and then also, your foreign ties and, tensions, etc. So all of those will have to be handled, if we have to go into, the path of economic growth. So Balochistan is where we are hoping to have, a lot of investment, not just from China, but also from Saudi Arabia. There is talk of, setting up an oil refinery and then linking that up with, the Gwadar port, and then Gwadar port, and, trade through that all the way up to China is part of our long-term plans. But then, the situation in Balochistan, even if you just look at the last 2, 3 months, even yesterday there was an attack in Panchpur, and laborers were killed. That has been, the unfortunate pattern, that a lot of migrant laborers there are being killed. So obviously the government has to do something about that. Balochistan is also the poorest a province that we have. It's the biggest in terms of geography. And then not even that, if travel further and areas into KP, into Pohistan and those areas, which also lie on the CPAC route. We had that unfortunate incident a few months ago. So obviously you have to, solve those, political problems as well, related to security, and then, political stability within the country. Here, even in Islamabad, you see off and on, demonstration and all. So there's a huge amount of challenges, and thank goodness the foreign front is a bit quiet in terms of tensions with India or anything. But all of these things can change, quite suddenly. So it's not just about working on economic issues. It's about managing all these challenges. These are the challenges before the government. But again, I would like to emphasize, even within economics, the big thing has to be on how we can climb the development ladder, and take our economy into producing more sophisticated goods, especially in terms of industry. Whenever you talk about SIFC, it's things like mining or corporate farming, which are not really cutting edge sectors. You may need them for whatever purposes, but if you want to really talk about cutting edge sectors, those are into manufacturing, those are into IT. So we need to, develop a plan. And that's a challenge even for the private sector. Even if you look at our best companies, say a company like Angro, which is probably one of the best managed companies in Pakistan, comparable to, multinational companies. Even those companies, they're largely focused on domestic industries, etc. They don't think of, taking up the challenge of, scanning the global economy, looking for, niches where Pakistan can, climb into higher valued industries and exports there. And that's where, the government has to step in. Farrukh was talking about R&D, and that has to be a huge component. R&D, looking at, where the openings are into the global economy and where we can climb in, what kind of support will need to be given to the private sector to have the confidence, the investment, the knowledge to be able to successfully move into those sectors and produce and bring foreign exchange reserves in. So those are the challenges. If the government succeed in all that, then we'll be on the path to sustainable economic growth.
Absolutely. Saqib Saab, very quickly, I want your perspective on something that Faisal mentioned in terms of R&D and innovation, particularly in tech-related areas. And we see, of course, a lot of young talent emerging, and they're working in different fields. But it seems, again, and you must have been part of a lot of such roundtables and dialogues as well, where we talk about the bridge between industry and academia. However, every time there is this discussion around how different these species are and how there is a trust deficit that exists, or how those two entities work very differently. But I want your take then in terms of an industry's perspective. How can we support the young talent bringing in innovation and working on R&D, while of course the risk factor is there, while of course we are still struggling in terms of economic terms, and understand the industry itself is trying to get on its feet?
Thank you. Sana, first, yes, I was waiting to answer for the R&D question which was being asked in the previous session. We cannot deny the fact that R&D is very much important, but unfortunately in Pakistan, the R&D section is very much weak. Whether we can call it in the private sector, or we can call it in the public sector. So the government has to make some revolutionary measures, or take some revolutionary measures, or the private sector has to step forward and come up with some solution to invest more into the R&D, which is lacking right now. Like if I have to do some R&D, I can do it on my own resources. I have to invest my own resources, but there is no such support. There is no such mechanism where we get some kind of support or help or any kind of guidance or any other thing for the R&D. So this is one thing we need to focus on to enhance our exports, even to flourish at the industry. We always talk about industrialization. Industrialization in Pakistan, industrialization in Pakistan has to be shifted from an import-based economy to an export-based economy. But how we have to reach over there, this is something lacking. Then secondly, the industry-academia linkage. There is a huge gap in the industry-academia linkage. People who are making things happen in the academia are not getting very well connected to the industry. I myself has been going to many universities, many academies, many classes. But when I ask people that how many of you are ready for the entrepreneurship, I received a very less number of people, less number of students who respond back to me positively, and they are willing to take a risk. They are willing to do something important, some entrepreneurship skills in that. We have to encourage an entrepreneurship environment in our country. A couple of months back, or we can say 6 months back, we always are discussing in the brain drain. The people are like discouraged from Pakistan. The young generation don't want to stay over here. There are around 6 million applications, 7 million applications. People want to leave Pakistan. We have to shift that thinking process. We have to highlight a positive image of Pakistan, which Alhamdulillah is being happening right now, but much need to be done in this sector. The R&D and the young generation, they has to.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but thank you, Saqib Rafiq Saab, and thank you, Dr. Niaz Murtaza, for joining us and being a part of the discussion and sharing your valuable insights. Very quickly, you want to add something?
Since you asked Faisal and Saqib Saab regarding skill development, I just wanted to chip in. I think that our university and training institutions are lacking in 3 very important aspects. The first one is the power of imagination or innovation. People are not told how to actually innovate or how to actually imagine big enough. For example, when Facebook was actually created, do you think that there was a Facebook-shaped hole in the market? No, somebody actually just thought it up, and Zuckerberg actually came with it. Came up with it. Similarly, what Elon Musk is doing, similarly what Bezos has done, all of these things were done within very meager resources. So why not our universities can't do that? Or IIT, like generation of intellectuals who can actually dream big enough. The second thing, Sana, is complexity. How to handle complexity, because people just want to create 2 + 2 is 4, right? They don't want to actually keep on adding value to it. This is the second thing. Third one is execution, and all of these things will come together when you have VC culture, venture capitalism in the economy. If you don't have that, all of this will just go up.
Right, absolutely. That is, of course, an important need of the hour. We're now going to move on to our next segment that takes a look at what's going on in the Middle East and, of course, the genocide that continues in Gaza. And Faisal, we've seen that despite the fact that it's been so long and there has been a lot of international protests and, of course, so many lives that have been lost, this is something that continues. And now, of course, this is something that is also affecting Lebanon and other areas and has the potential of escalating into a very disastrous situation in the Middle East and then, of course, for the world. While this is something at least recognized by certain countries in terms of the potential escalation, there seems to be certain efforts to see towards ceasefire that seem to continue. We haven't really seen, though, any real success on that front. And while those talks or those efforts continue, the attacks also continue. And so I want your take on whether or not any serious effort is being done, A, and B, with attacks on Lebanon, for example, and Iran's involvement in this area, what exactly will then be the potential future when we talk about the way things are going?
Yes, and obviously when we talk about Gaza situation right now, I mean the initial plan of Netanyahu was that if we start bombing, carpet bombing, and of course if we tell them to, if they can go to the southern side, then because we are conducting a combing operation, eventually all of the Gazans, they will make their way out from Gaza and go elsewhere, because ethnic cleansing, this is what their plan was, that they wanted to, of course, wipe out all of the houses, all of the buildings, and they wanted to create their own and consider that part of obviously their own Israel, what they call. And it was initially a plan for 2 months, but the resistance of the people of Gaza, the resistance of people of Palestine, it has showed that they have no limits when it comes to resist this kind of menace, this kind of genocide, and still they are doing. And till now, of course, when we saw that there were few lame kind of tries which are being or lip service which is being conducted by Secretary Blinken, it is only to, of course, facilitate some sort of element that is contributing towards the elections as well. Overall, on ground, the situation is very, dire. The situation is very strange. And when it comes to, countries like Egypt, they are seeking from countries like Egypt to, of course, inhibit all of these people in Peninsula, Sinai Peninsula, so that they can leave this place, because they know the eventual goal of Israel is, of course, they want all of the Gazans to get out from there, and they want to cover Gaza. But of course, if we if we take the United Nations example, I mean, right. UN is time and again it has demanded for the ceasefire, but it is not taking place. Now, rather than, of course, imposing that ceasefire or sending in the troops, peace troops, as they have the habit or have the precedent to send troops in these kind of situations, rather than doing that, even their own institutions that were, of course, dealing with the miseries which are Gazans are going through, they were dealing with that. Now they have even stopped them to do that.
Right, absolutely. And this is a disastrous situation, but of course, this is something that we hope will end very, very soon. But thank you, Faisal, and thank you for joining us in the debate as always. That's all that we have time for. We'll now see you tomorrow.